What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the third episode of the Flask tutorial series here on Neural 9. In this video today we're going to learn about templating and how to render HTML files. So let us get right into it. Alright, so we're going to cover a couple of different concepts in this video today. As I already mentioned, we're going to learn how to render HTML files, we're going to learn how to work with templates. In addition to that, we're also going to learn how to redirect, we're going to learn how to dynamically get the URLs for specific endpoints, and we're also going to learn how to work with the Jinja2 templating engine, how to use filters, how to create custom filters. So it's going to be a quite comprehensive episode today. Now what we have here is a very basic Hello World project. We just have a simple index endpoint and that's it. And up until this point, every time we had an endpoint, we returned some string, some JSON object, something like this, but not an actual HTML file. And this is the first thing that we're going to change now. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a directory full of templates, full of HTML files, and then we're going to render them instead of just returning a text. And the first step to do that is in the definition of our application, we're going to add a keyword argument called template folder. And we're going to call the folder, in this case, templates. This is what it's usually called. Now, this folder, this directory now needs to be created here in our application. So I can right click, new directory, and I can call this here templates. Now, to keep it very simple, what we can do now is we can just create an HTML file in here. Let's call it index.html. And in my case here, I already have some basic structure, just doc type HTML, HTML head, character set defined, a title, and then an empty body. And we can say the title is Flask app. And then I can just, have a heading here, Hello World, or something like this. This is now an HTML file in my templates directory, a very simple one. Now, in order to return the HTML file and not just some text, I need to import a function or a method called render template. And now what I do is I render the template instead of returning hello world. So I say return render template and then just the name of the file. We don't need to specify the path because we already know that the template folder is templates. So all I have to do is I have to say index.html. And in this case, when I run the application, when I go to the browser, you're going to see hello world. The HTML file has been rendered. Now, the good thing is now we can do a lot of things here that we can usually not do with HTML files. We can dynamically change what is happening in this HTML file. We can change the content of this HTML file. And we can do that, for example, in a very simple way by just passing certain keyword arguments. So for example, I might have my value here, and my value can be hello world, or let's change this to something else like, let's just call this Neural 9. And then I might have some calculation, my result is equal to 10 plus 20. I do some stuff here in this method. I call some functions, I do some processing, and then I want to put these two values, these two resulting values, I want to feed them into the HTML file and I want to dynamically render them in the HTML file. What I can do for this is I can just pass keyword arguments, whichever keyword arguments I want. I can say my value equals my value. I can say my result equals my result. And of course, they don't have to be the same name. I can also say XYZ equals my value. This is not a problem. The important thing is that the name that I choose for the keyword argument, so the left one, is the one that I have to access in the HTML file. The right side doesn't really matter. This is just a value. So now I have these two values and I can easily just go into my HTML file, and all I have to do to display them is I can use some tags, so for example a paragraph, and in order to access these variables, these values, I just have to use double curly brackets. And I can now specify the variable name. So my value, for example, and I can copy this and change this to my result. By the way, I think that if you're working in PyCharm, you need to set up the templating language. I think you need to go to settings, template. Is there something like template language? Yeah, you have to go with template language and change this to Jinja2 because this is the templating engine of Flask, but I think this only works in the professional edition. I'm not sure about that. But it's only about syntax highlighting. You can also do it without that. So you have these two things here now, and what I have to do, or what I can do now, is I can just go reload the page, and you can see I get the values in the page, even though I didn't explicitly say neural 930, I get whatever I passed from the function here. So that is how you use values that you pass. Now, you can also do some more advanced stuff. So for example, what I can do is I can say my list equals, and then I can have some elements in here, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And I can say that I want to pass the list. So let's just pass the list only. My list equals my list. Let's delete these two things. And what I can do now is, of course, I can go here and I can just say my list. This is easy. In this case, what would happen is I would just get the list. But I can also use certain other structures of the templating language. So I can go ahead and say I want to have an unordered list. So UL, and then I want to have certain list items. And I want to list all the individual elements of the list. How do I do that? I can do that with a Jinja2 for loop. So I can use a single curly bracket, not double, single and then percent. And then I also close this with percent curly bracket. And here I can say now for, and I can call this whatever I want, item in my list. Now I need to close this with curly bracket percent and for percent curly bracket. And in between now, for each element in the list, I will do something. So I can also just say hello. Then I'm going to do this 5 times. This also works, as you can see. But it makes more sense to have a list item and to have the content of this list item be double curly brackets item. So what we do here is percent, so single curly bracket percent for a for loop, also for if statements and so on. And we use double double curly brackets for individual variables or values. Then you can see here, I get a list of the values. So this is what we can do here. What else can we do? Now we can do a lot of things. We can do conditions. So for example, I can say curly bracket percent if item is equal to 30. What I want to do then is, again, also here, and if, then I can say if that is the case, I want to have a specific list item where the style is color red item, and I also need an else branch, and I can just copy this here. There you go. And in this case now, this one is red because I have this condition in here. Now, of course, I can also take this and make it more efficient by just not doing it like this, by just saying here, within the list item, I can just go and say percent if item equals 30, then add the style and if, and otherwise don't. This has the same effect. It's just another way of writing it. So basically we have the if here, and then this is what happens if the condition is met. So this produces the same result, as you can see. All right, so that's like the simple stuff. This is the basic idea of templating, or at least of using values in the templates. Now, what we can also do, and this is now very interesting, is we can inherit templates. So let's say I want to have the same navigation, I want to have the same header, I want to have, or the same head section, I want to have the same imports, I want to have the same content on every single page I have on my page, or on my application, and I don't want to rewrite it all the time. So actually the only thing that's different about this index HTML compared to all the other files in my application is this content here. I don't need the rest. This is just what's unique about this. Everything else should be the same everywhere else. Maybe the title not. What we can do for this is we can create a so-called base template. So I can go ahead, I can create an HTML file, base.html. And in this base HTML file, I can now define the structure. So I can say we have this doc type HTML again, HTML language English. We define a character set, I have a body and so on. And the title now we can make dynamic. So we can say if you inherit from this template, you will be able to fill in certain blocks. So you will have certain sections that you can change. And such a section can be defined as curly bracket percent block, and then we can choose a name for this section. So title, for example. And then I also need end block. The idea now is that when we inherit from this template, we're going to see how to do that here in a second. When we inherit from this template, we can fill in this section. So depending on which page you're in, you're going to get a different title. However, I can also put a default value in between. So I can say default value, for example. This is going to be the default title if I don't actively fill in the title in the sub page that is inheriting from this template. And then I can do another block here in body. I can say, again, curly bracket % block content. And I can close this here, end block. And then I have some content here. So this is now the basic structure. And of course, if I want to, I can have a navigation here on each page. And this is now always the same. It's not part of the block. It will always be there. Or maybe just to show you that this is the case, I can add a paragraph here. This will always be here because it's not part of the block content here, or of the block content here. And now what we can do is we can go into our index file and we can extend from this template. So I can go here, I can delete all of this here. And at the top of my index HTML file, I can say now, curly bracket % extends and then base.html like this. So now it extends from base HTML. It has the same structure and I can fill in the blocks now. I can do the same thing, block and title, end block, and in title I'm gonna say here just index page. And then I can say block content, then I have my content here, and I can close this block. There you go. So now what I can do is I can refresh the page. You can see this will always be there and I still have the same content. And I can do this now with a different page as well. I can copy this, I can call this other HTML. I can change the title to other page and I can, maybe just have a heading here, other, something like this. Then I also need an endpoint for this, so let's copy this. Let's call this other. Let's put the round to other and then just render other HTML. There you go. And now when I rerun this, you can see here, first of all, we have, again, here index page, and then I can go /other, and this is still here, and we get other page as a title here. So this is very useful because you don't have to constantly make all the changes everywhere. Imagine you don't do that and you want to include a new CSS file or a new JavaScript file, or you want to import Bootstrap or something. You cannot just do it here once. You have to do it at every single HTML file you have, and chances are you have hundreds of them, depending on the size of your application. So it makes a lot of sense to have this base HTML file for the basic structure and then to just extend it here with the other HTML files. All right. So now let us move on to a concept called filters. Now I have a video on this channel separately, a separate video about filters in Jinja. And I'm just going to briefly go through them. So I'm going to create here a new, or actually let's use the other page for that. Let's call it filters here. What we're going to do now is we're going to explore the effect of filters. So very basic here. Let's say I have some text that I pass to this endpoint. I have a text, and let's call this text just hello world. Some text equals some text. Now, as we already saw, I can just display this in a paragraph here in a very simple way by using double curly brackets, some text, just to see that this still works. There you go, hello world. Now what I can do is I can say I want to have certain operations applied to that. A very simple one is I want to have everything in uppercase. Now what you do in Python is you call the .upper function, or you call other methods of the string. This is not really possible here in Jinja. What you do in Jinja is you use templates, and to use templates, filters. And to use filters, you need to pipe the text through a filter. So we use the pipe symbol, and for example, one filter is upper. This is a built-in filter. You need to know that these exist. There's a list of them in the documentation, but this is a built-in filter. And now if I go to the page, you can see we get hello world in uppercase. I can do the same thing in Let's maybe just keep all of them to compare them. I can do the same thing with lower. So now if I go here, you can see it's all lowercase. And there are also other filters. So for example, I can do title. I can do stuff like replace, where I can also add parameters. So I can say replace all the else by uppercase else, for example. This works. So here you can see title case is just default. And then we have here the replace filter active. And then we can also do, or actually, you know, there's a huge list of different filters that you can use. But what I'm interested in showing you here is that you can also define your own custom filters. So you can say, let's say you want to have a filter that reverses the string, for example. For some reason you want to do that. This is not a filter, as far as I know, that is available by default. So you have to implement it yourself. And you can easily do that by going into your app UI and importing from Flask here. Or actually, I don't even think we need to import anything, sorry. We can go down here and we can create now not a route, so not app.route, but app.template filter. And we can call this filter, for example, reverse string. Then I can call the method reverse string, and it takes something as a parameter. And this parameter is just our text, so our string s. And what I can do now is I can just return s, and then I can reverse it like this, ::, -1. This is just how you reverse a string in Python. And now what I can do is I have this reverse string here. I can go to my other HTML and I can say reverse string. And now I can go here and you can see it reverses the string. It's my custom behavior. I get some input and I return some output. This is my filter. I can do other filters as well. I can do a filter called, what did I have here? Repeat is a very simple one. Repeat also takes additional parameters. So I can say repeat, and repeat takes a string, and I can also say it takes times. And times by default is 2. But it doesn't have to be, it can also be 10, and then I return just s times times. So I can go here, I can copy this, I can say repeat, and I can say repeat 5. And then you can see hello world, and then I get it 5 times as well. Maybe another thing that we can do is we can alternate the cases. Just now, one more example here. We can go and say app template filter alternate case. Basically everything that's uppercase will be made lowercase and vice versa. So alternate case of s, and now we can return here empty string join. I'm going to use a list comprehension character upper if I, or actually no, this would be swap case. Alternate case means you have uppercase, lowercase, uppercase, lowercase, uppercase, lowercase. So what we're going to do actually here is we're going to say if the index is modulo 2 is 0. So if it's an if it's an even number, we're going to do c.upper else c.lower for I, C in enumerate s. And then what we get is, of course, we need to apply it as well. Let's go to other alternate case. There you go. We get this uppercase, lowercase, uppercase, lowercase, uppercase, and so on. So this is how you use filters. Now, one last thing, or actually 2 things that I want to show you here now is 1, the redirect, and 2, how you get dynamic URLs. So how you can get the URL of an endpoint dynamically without having to specify it statically, because of course it can change. So first of all, let's do the redirect. Or actually, first of all, let's do the dynamic URL, because the redirect can then use the dynamic URL for the redirection. Now let's say on my index page I want to have a link to other. So I want to have a link to the endpoint other. Now the endpoint other might have actually this URL here, but I might change this over time. So I might say this is something else now. I don't want to manually define that this is the endpoint. Or that this is the route to this endpoint. So what I can do here in the index pages, I can have a link, I can have an anchor tag with the following destination. And now I can use double curly brackets again, and I can say URL_for, and then I just pass the function name, other. And then I can say here, other. Now you can see I didn't specify the route at all, but if I now go to this, and I reload the page, you can see I have a link to other, and you can see in the bottom left that it actually gets me to this page. So you can see here that the link is going to this URL here, to this endpoint, dynamically. If I change it, it's going to change as well. So if I go here and I change this again back to other, it will also change in index.html without me having to do anything. There you go, still works. Now this can also be used for redirects, and this can also be used in the Python code, not just in HTML, not just in the templating engine. So for example, what I can do is I can say, let's add a new endpoint here, app route, redirect endpoint, and then I can say redirect endpoint here. What I can do now is I can return, instead of returning a template or a text or something, I can just return a redirect. And for this, I need to import the redirect function. And I can just say return redirect. And the location now, I can of course say just /other, but I can also do, and for this I need to also import URL_for. I can just call the URL_for function here. URL_for and then other, for example. Redirects me to other. So if I now run the application again, and I go to /redirect endpoint, you can see I end up at the other page. So yeah, this is how you can do that. This is how you work with templates. This is how you render HTML files, how you can use filters in Jinja, how you can extend templates, and how you work in general with actual HTML content, not just text. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and hope you learned something. If so, let me know by hitting a like button and leaving a comment in the comment section down below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell to not miss a single future video for free. Other than that, thank you much for watching. See you in the next video and bye.